Founded just over 100 years ago, the Boy Scouts play a role in the American imagination where young boys learn skills in camping and wilderness survival. But it is much more than that. The mission of the Boy Scouts of America and the Connecticut Rivers Council is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of Scout oath and law. And that means teaching the virtues of character, citizenship, fitness, and leadership. Stephen Smith, Scout Executive and CEO for the Boy Scouts of Connecticut Rivers Council, joins the Municipal Voice today to talk the state of Scouting in 2022. We'd like to thank our sponsors at Gateway and Housatonic Community Colleges. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Stephen, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So I think most of our listeners at home have a pretty good general idea about what the Boy Scouts are, but could you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Connecticut Rivers Council and its role in the state?
Sure. Connecticut Rivers Council represents 126 of the communities here in Connecticut, which is almost like 2/3 of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in our programs, we have about 10,000 kids involved right now, boys and girls. And it's just been a growing program. And as we finish up this last week, we're closing up our camps for the summer and just had a great summer. But yeah.
Excellent. And so you said you cover a lot of the state. Are there other councils that also operate in Connecticut?
There's actually 4 in the state of Connecticut. Okay. There's one in kind of the New Haven area, Milford, and they cover that southern shore area. And it's the second biggest council in the state. Then there's one in Derby that covers 5 communities, and then Greenwich.
And everything else is you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's certainly a lot of territory to cover. For you personally, could you tell us a little bit about your title of Scout Executive? I know you're also the CEO, but what is a Scout Executive? Is that an official designation like Eagle Scout or Cub Scout?
It's the title of the top paid executive for the council. CEO would be the corporate structure name. In the Boy Scouts, it's been the Scout Executive, and in some councils, it's the Chief Scout Executive. And I think a lot of that comes from the military background of the Scouts, the way they started out, and just kind of carried through.
Yeah, I know when we had someone from the Salvation Army on, they have a lot of those kind of interesting titles from their history. Is it safe to assume that you were in fact a Scout at one point in your life?
I was. I almost surprised to say, yes, I've got my 50-year pin in the Scouts. It started when I was 8, and I'm past the 50-year point at this point. But yeah, from Cub Scouts all the way through, was an Eagle Scout, am an Eagle Scout. You never was an Eagle Scout, but yeah.
Once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout.
Absolutely.
So one of the kind of big things, more visible things that you guys do in Connecticut is you have a lot of camps. How many camps do you have in Connecticut, and how many Scouts do those camps serve?
We have 4 camps. One is in Ashford, JNW. June Norcross Webster. We have one down in Plymouth, Mattatuck. We have one in New Hartford, which is Workomen. And then we have a little piece of property in the far northwest corner of the state. That's Camp Barber. That's primarily a wilderness camp. We do a lot of outpost type things there. This summer, we'll probably run pretty close to 4,000 kids through our program or through the summer camps. A lot of that is our kids. We get a lot of kids from out of state coming in. We have a troop that comes in every other year from Arizona. We get a lot of kids from the Boston area and Long Island. So it's just
everyone that goes to camp are Scouts, but there's Scouts from all over the country.
There are, yeah. We have some really good program here, and we get a lot of outside groups coming in.
And reciprocal, do you go to any like other camps by other areas with your guys? That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really Connecticut's small enough that you
Hmm.
can connect to other areas also. We have troops that go up to the Adirondacks.
Hmm.
We have nationally several high adventure bases. One's in New Mexico. It's a big
Hmm.
backpacking group. We have one down in Isle Morada in
Hmm.
Florida, and they do sailing and go down through the Bahamas, and you can work on your PADI certification
Hmm.
and general sailing on tall ships and things like that. We have
Very
one
cool.
in northern Minnesota that's
Hmm.
canoeing in Boundary Waters canoe area, and then one in West Virginia that's all about training and that type of thing.
That's really cool. So, what is your relationship like with other councils in the area? Do you have close relationship with New York councils and other ones around?
It just depends on the councils.
Hmm.
Some encourage it, others they're big enough that they really don't need to work with other councils around them. That cooperation is always good,
Yeah,
and it's more important that the kids get the best program
definitely.
than be yeah.
Well, speaking about relationships, what are your relationships like with the towns and cities that you operate in? Do you kind of partner with the municipal governments? Do you deal with boards of education? What are those programs like?
We do both.
Hmm.
Um, we do a lot of community service projects.
Hmm.
The kids do. A lot of them are done in city parks, state parks,
Hmm.
building picnic tables and clearing paths. The Appalachian Trail goes through, and a number of our troops have adopted miles of the trail to
Hmm.
take care of it. There's baseball diamonds and things like that that kids have done projects at to upgrade or fix or add bleachers or things like that.
Hmm.
But there's just a lot of community projects that have been done by the kids over the years.
Very cool. Now, one specific type of camp that you also do is a STEM camp. Could you talk a little bit about what STEM camp is and what it's like for the students?
Sure. Um, STEM camp is kind of a slide off of a thing called STEM Scouts.
Hmm.
And that was a program that this council helped pilot for the 3 years before the pandemic.
Hmm.
And STEM Scouts was a program, well, I shouldn't say was, is a program that it was set up kind of in the scouting model of patrols,
Hmm.
where there would be groups of 8 to 10 kids. They would go through and teach leadership skills and things like that.
Hmm.
But rather than using a hook of the out of doors and camping, we'd use more science and technology,
Hmm.
where we'd be working with 3D printers, where they would be doing chemistry experiments of some of them might include making like ice cream, but
Hmm.
rather than just making the ice cream and eating it, they'd actually talk about the chemical reactions that cause ice cream to form.
Hmm.
There's groups that went into architectural things, engineering things,
Hmm.
where they actually looked at the science behind it, not just the building of it. So when we take it into camp, and
Hmm.
specifically, they do that, but they also do things like coding and computer design and build computers, a lot of robotics and coding
Hmm.
for robots and things like that. So it's really been a good partnership, and that is one of the big partnerships that we do have with school districts. The
Hmm.
first year we started the STEM Scout program, we had about 200 kids in it,
Hmm.
and ran it for about 6 months. The second year we had 800. The third year we had just shy of 2,000. It
Wow.
was the fastest growing program we had in the Boy Scouts.
And for that STEM program, like the instructors, where do you find them? Because I imagine they need to know things about robotics and all the different disciplines there.
It's a little of both.
Hmm.
Volunteering has changed a lot
Hmm.
over the years. And we find that volunteers like to do projects where they know there's a beginning and they know there's an end.
Hmm.
There used to be the old joke in the Boy Scouts of sign up for an hour a week and you get out when you pass. That's really changed. Just the whole methodology of scouting of we've
Hmm.
got to honor our commitments to our volunteers of when you come in, this is what the job is we need you to do.
Hmm.
This is the time allowance that you'll probably need, and here's the end point.
Hmm.
So we can go out to engineering companies and we can go out to architectural firms and we can go out to drug manufacturers and talk to them about the STEM scouts and what we
Hmm.
need. And people are very happy to talk about their careers.
Hmm.
They really want to share that and they want to share their excitement for their career with scout age kids
Hmm.
to give them a heads up of this is what you can do in the future. And that's really what's grown and kept the STEM thing really moving because it's hands-on stuff that they
Hmm.
can see an end point. Even for the kids doing it, they can see this is the end. It's not
Yeah.
just a all theory. This is what I can do with that theory and how I can move it forward. And that's what the camps are about.
One of the more interesting values that you instill in Scouts is citizenship. Um, why is patriotism and citizenship important to the Scouts?
Citizenship has always been, and with the original program that started in Britain, I even
Hmm.
being a good citizen has always been a part of it, and that's contributing to it. It's not just sitting by the sidelines and watching it go by. It's actually being an active participant.
Hmm.
And as you work through the scouting program, there's things like citizenship in the community where it's not only learning about your community, it's going to city council meetings, it's talking to councilmen and women about what they do and why they do it and why it's important to their
Hmm.
community. And it's understanding what zoning committees are about and how that all ties together. So we do that at the community level, we do it at the nation level, and we
Hmm.
actually also do it at the world level with the United
Hmm.
Nations that we expose the kids to all of that. And it's not just a learn about it, it's
Hmm.
go do it. There's nothing like sitting in a city council meeting where they're talking about a school budget and one of the programs that you're most excited about is something they're talking about getting rid of.
Hmm.
Or it's able that you're able to go to a city council meeting and talk about something that moves you that, hey, the new playground equipment, it's just really
Yeah.
neat the way it's been done, or the conservation area, or some of our kids have gone into those type of situations and they heard about things that the city couldn't do because they didn't have money, and then all of a sudden it becomes an Eagle Scout project
Hmm.
that they took it on to go do it, and they
Yeah.
thought it was a good idea, but there wasn't money to do it, so they went and raised the money to go do it for their
Hmm.
community. So it's just always been a good part of scouting and paying it forward.
Yeah. And you said it's always been there. So somebody say, is it always going to be a perennial concern? But it sounds like part of it is the idea that it's not just, you're a patriot and you believe that, but it's about actions and going to this meeting and putting in work for your community. It sounds like it's a big part of that with the Scouts.
Yeah, I one of the things that comes to mind for me is I remember when I was on camp staffs, we always used to sing a song. It's a Big Yellow Taxi Cab,
Hmm.
and it was always sung on Ecology Day.
Hmm.
But there's a line in there that, yeah, how's it go? Don't you don't know how it seems to go
Hmm.
until it goes away,
Yeah.
and that's really what it's about. Is you really don't realize what you have until it goes away.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's important to you. And it's just in scouting, we've always really taught that citizenship is something that you don't want it to go away.
Hmm.
Because if you let it go away, worse things can come forward.
Yeah.
And there's always some form of leadership that will insert itself when there's a void.
Another thing that's interesting is it's not just a matter of it going away, but also that it evolves and how it changes even within the organization. And I know that you've recently introduced a new badge around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's called the Citizenship in Society Merit Badge.
We have.
How does one earn that badge? What was the genesis behind this new badge?
It is the most unusual badge we offer. There's
Hmm.
no right answer. In every other merit badge we have, there's a definite, this is the way you do it.
Hmm.
And this isn't. I my background, I was educated in a Jesuit college. And
Hmm.
one of the things that they constantly taught you is think about the other person.
Hmm.
Think about how your decision is going to affect the community. Think about how it's going to affect you. Think about all those things. And as I read the requirements for the badge, that's exactly what it is. It's
Mm.
not so much a think about yourself, it's think about how your actions will affect the rest of the community.
Mm.
Part of the merit badge has scenarios where it talks about you move into a new school and you're from another part of a country.
Hmm.
And when you get there, um, how it's different for you. And I could really relate to that in the Boy Scouts. We move around the country
Hmm.
quite a bit, and I came from the Midwest area here. And when we came here, my daughter was going to wear Birkenstocks to school,
Hmm.
and they just thought when she went to school she dressed odd and she was just really different. And she just was mortified that she'd never be caught dead in Birkenstocks the rest of her life. When she got here, they wore those leather slippers that had
Hmm.
fur coming out of them. And it was like all of the kids were wearing those. And that was acceptable. She went back to the Midwest to go to college and she wore her slippers and they looked at her like she was incredibly odd. And it's understanding those things that it's not just moving around from country to country, it's moving from different parts of our country to other parts of our country. One of the really neat parts, and it predates the Citizenship and Society, was when the pandemic hit, we had to switch programs on a dime. We went
Hmm.
from a camp where everybody got together in a camp to a virtual camp. And we ran summer camp merit badges and things like that
Yeah.
online. And when we did that, we had kids signing up from all over the country. And
Hmm.
it was right during the presidential election time period. And it was incredible to watch these kids from all over the country talk about what the issues were that were important to them
Yeah.
and how the kids in Connecticut, what they were concerned about had nothing to do with what the kids in Texas were
Hmm.
concerned about, or the kids in California. And we even had a kid from Alaska there. And they were all talking about what their concerns were and what they wanted the president to take care of and that type of thing.
Hmm.
So it really exposed them to a whole different thing. And the Scouts has done that a lot. We've done it with our virtual merit badges
Hmm.
at the camp. But we also have a jamboree on the airways that we do in October that
Hmm.
kids all over the world connect into that. And that's all part of the citizenship and society. It's just, scouting's a melting pot
Hmm.
and it's just bringing all of these cultures together. And I was at the World Jamboree in 2019. The US hosted it.
Hmm.
And just seeing these kids break out in song, and it was just, they had a common set of values of serving others, and that was
Yeah.
the part of the citizenship. But it was just so different, and it was fun how they tied together about what united them instead of
Hmm.
what divided them. And it was good.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM.
Outside of scouting, do you encourage your scouts to do public service? Let's say volunteer with their local municipality or things like that.
We do. From first class forward,
Hmm.
every rank requires them to do community service,
Hmm.
whether it's for their church, for their community, for elderly people,
Hmm.
just do community service. And that kind of ties at the very end to an Eagle Scout project, which is the granddaddy of
Yeah.
projects of thinking it up from the beginning through the end. And some just really neat projects have been done. And a lot of the kids, they do things that interest them.
Hmm.
And things that are going to make a difference in their communities. I get a kick. My brother works for a Parks and Recreation department, and he says, it's that time of the year. And I said, that time of the year. And he said, yeah, because of my involvement in scouting, all the kids doing their Eagle projects come in to see me, and I end up working with them. And he's going, we get an incredible amount of, and I hate to say free labor, but it's free labor, but it's knowledgeable labor. They will go out and get architects to help them design things. And it's not just the kids got together and drew it up on a net or did drawings on a napkin. They actually get people that know what they need to do to get things done. And it's great gifts to communities when they do that.
It really is. Yeah, I think anyone that's spent any amount of time on the trails and woodlands of Connecticut has probably seen a plaque somewhere that said something was built and donated by an Eagle Scout or part of an Eagle Scout project. Yeah,
they do.
Bridges and all sorts of great things all over through
Smile every time I see one and take a picture of it. But
as you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, one of the kind of bigger changes in Boy Scouts in recent years is that it's no longer just for boys. It has, in fact, gone co-ed. Can you tell us some about how that's been going on, the implications of allowing girls to join Scouts, and how you've implemented it over the past several years in Connecticut?
Sure. Scouting, it's kind of the best kept secret. Scouting really started moving co-ed in the 70s, in 74. And actually, I was in the program at the time when it did in a thing called Exploring, which was primarily camping, but it was also career exploration. And those programs were all co-ed at that point going forward. As we move forward into the STEM Scouts later, it started as co-ed and carried through. And our Learning for Life program was also, which is an in-school program, was co-ed and is co-ed. The last two programs we had were Cub Scouts and the Boy Scout program. And that's what went co-ed in the last 3 years as we move forward. We started out with the younger kids, the Cub Scouts, and did that. We had separate dens for the boys and the girls, that they would be in the same packs. And we quickly found out that most of the packs wanted the boys and girls together. And a lot of them wanted what we call now family dens, where it's brothers and sisters and the entire family participate together in the Cub Scout program. And it's been a real blessing to us. Most of the parents work and they're looking for things to do with their children that's structured and has similar values to them and their family, and that they can do with their entire family, not drop one kid off at soccer practice and another one at another field and another one across town, and then your two parents or one parent end up playing carpool taxi, running kids all the way back and forth. So these programs are all set up that mom and dad or mom or dad can participate with their family, and they can all do the activity together. It's structured. They can go out to our fastest growing programs, our weekend programs at camp, where it's one of them we do is maple sugar. The kids will go out. We have evaporation tanks out there. We show the kids how to tap the trees and how the sap runs down through the tubes, the collection pots, how they boil it off. There's other games out there, and at the end of it, they have pancakes with maple syrup that came out of the trees that they just went through and did that. So we've created a lot more program that goes that direction, and it's going over really well. It's going over well, tying in with school districts too. They look for activities to tie families into the school and that build that community sense. That's where the family dance is really accelerated in growth and really are moving forward. And we've really been able to take advantage of that. We're seeing a lot of those in the towns where they have town centers. that we have gaga pits and blow up things that we'll bring in, and they'll have almost a day camp type program in the city park. And it's just kind of a fun Sunday or Saturday activity, Sunday activity type thing where the kids get to do that. On the Boy Scout side, that we changed the name. It's Scouts USA. We have boy groups and girl groups, and they go through their program. We've got girls now that have achieved the Eagle Scout and working through those programs, and guys too. They, in some cases, link. What a link would be is there'd be a boy troop and a girl troop at the same church or volunteer fire department or that type of thing. And that's worked out well also, and is growing. That's probably growing a little faster than what the Cub Scout program started out at. A lot of it was legacy kids starting out that dad or mom were in the program at different points, and a lot of moms, their brothers were in it, and they wanted to be a part, and they used to refer to them as tag-alongs, that brothers would be in it and the little sister would participate anyway. And I can tell you, I have a friend that his sister was always running around with us in the group, and she's, gosh, 50 years later, incredibly close friend, and she says, well, it's about time. It's just values are the same, and honestly, thoughts have changed. I have a troop, couple of troops, boy and girl. They did a thing in the scouting program. There's a thing where they build a fire, and it's a time thing. And one of the scout leaders said it was really interesting and fun to watch the boys and the girls do it differently. And he said the boys immediately, when you said go, just started throwing stuff in a pile and started throwing matches at it with hopes of it going. He said the girls broke. They sat and they talked about it for about 10 minutes of how they were going to do it, who needed to get what, and how they needed to get it organized, and all of that. They got all their materials together, and then one match started it up, and it was going. He said it was just fun to watch the way the boys and the girls think so much differently and think it through. And that was actually one of the concerns when we were putting the programs together, was the maturity levels of boys and girls are much different. And we were actually more concerned that the girls would take over the program because they mature faster. And if you look at other national agencies that are co-ed, in that high school age group, most of the leadership in them are girls. So we were really concerned that we did not want to give up our heritage over adding girls to the program. So it's been the best of both worlds.
So here's the question for you, and I don't want to get you in trouble with anyone, but what's the difference between having a troop of girls in the Scouts and having a troop of Girl Scouts? Because I remember growing up, there was Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. What do you see as kind of the differences there? Like if someone's going to choose, my daughter wants to do something like that, which way do you go?
I'm proud of our program, and I'm proud of what the Girl Scouts have also. We're different. And
maybe it isn't choice. Maybe you can do both.
And we have a number of girls that are. Some of the early girl Eagles that we had achieved the Silver and Gold Award in the Girl Scouts. They wanted to get both awards. There's nothing wrong with that. I think both programs have their merits. They're both a little different.
Slightly different focuses.
Yeah, the Scout USA is probably a little more of the outdoor. I don't think the Girl Scouts has totally walked away from outdoors, but it's not as much. But that more high adventure, heavier wilderness type thing is in the Scouts USA model. But I really can't talk about the Girl Scouts. I don't know their program. There's a reason I don't want to.
You're not the expert on that one.
I'm not, and I wouldn't profess to know what their program is.
That's very cool. So I guess then the question for you is, what does an exemplary scout look like today? Can you give us some examples of projects or some scouts that have stood out to you in recent years?
You know, I've been here in Connecticut about 12 years now.
Hmm.
And one happened shortly about the time I got here.
Hmm.
There was a scout that we have a troop that backpacks Kilimanjaro every 4 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And while he was there in Tanzania, he went by a orphanage
Hmm.
and saw how bad the situation was.
Yeah.
And he came back to the States and did a massive clothing drive and um, educational support items, notebooks and pencils and pads and
Hmm.
clothing and all of this. And then he arranged for transportation to get it all from the States to Tanzania over Christmas break.
Yeah.
And if anything could go wrong on this trip, it did.
Hmm.
I did, from having to pay bribes to customs people to let it through, to items being stolen, to uh, trucks that were supposed to bring the stuff to the orphanage, to just all the way down the line. It
Hmm.
just, everything went wrong. And in the very end, when they actually got the supplies to the orphanage and that he and his father went, um, the kids didn't have any food. And they went and got food and brought it back to the orphanage so they could have that too.
Hmm.
And just, it was just an incredible story of everything that he went through, of getting things donated and airlines working with him and
Yeah.
shipping companies working with him and all of that to make it happen. And another one would be a young man. He They had been to Haiti on a
Hmm.
family vacation and found out that a lot of the kids couldn't read because they had such poor vision.
Hmm.
And he made arrangements to do his Eagle project, was to get eyeglasses to these kids. And it was great that he could get the eyeglasses there, but he couldn't get the vision test.
Hmm.
And he worked and got vision tests put together and got this whole thing. And as he was going down the line, and his project was turned down by the Boy Scouts because Haiti was an unstable country
Hmm.
and they couldn't allow him to go in the name of the Boy Scouts to this unstable country. So as a dry run, he did all of the vision tests and eyeglasses and all of that here in
Hmm.
Hartford in the North End to try it out to make sure it was
Hmm.
all going to work. And that became his Eagle project, doing it on the North End. And he did it and got his Eagle, but he felt so moved that his original project was what was really it.
Hmm.
And he did it anyway. He went to Haiti with his family and some other physicians, and they
Hmm.
did it. And it was just, that's above and beyond.
Yeah. He didn't
He
need to do
didn't,
it for his Eagle Scout.
he
He'd already
didn't,
gotten that.
he
That was,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what the Eagle Scout is all about, is paying it forward to your community and being that good. Used to be, you'd say, be a good citizen in your country. Now,
Hmm.
the country isn't it, it's global. And it's being a good global citizen.
Yeah. So if now it's being a good global citizen, what is scouting going to be in 2040 or in 100 years from now? What do you see as the future of scouting?
Right now, World Scouting already exists.
Hmm.
And in 2019, when we hosted the World Jamboree here,
Hmm.
we have 47,000 kids here
Yeah.
from, gosh, I want to say it was like 130 different countries in the
Hmm.
world. Um, I think you're going to see that continue. There's always a need and want to help other people.
Hmm.
And that's the some of the credo of the Boy Scouts and Scouting program from the beginning,
Hmm.
was to help other people at all times and to do service and to be prepared. And I don't think that's going to go away. I
Hmm.
think it's going to I think the ways we deliver the program is going to change, whether it's STEM Scouts, whether it's computers, whether it's online. I think all of that's going to change, but those core principles are always going to stay the same, I think.
That'll be really good. Maybe someday we'll see some Eagle Scout projects on Mars or the moon. Who knows?
Would not surprise me. That's actually the first Jamboree. The gentleman that did the Mars rover was actually in my subcamp talking to the kids about the projects and what he'd do differently as he went through. And the kids were like, the battery was the issue. And he said, it wasn't. It was a big fight whether we were using solar, if we were going to use nuclear. And that was the place, I tell you, we should have used nuclear so we could have had more. And
how many engineers of tomorrow were in that room?
Yeah. And it was incredible how many people wanted to visit with him. And he was right there with the kids right up next to him talking.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been absolutely a blast sitting here talking about how great our kids are.
We'd like to thank our guest, Stephen Smith. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page. CCM's annual convention returns Tuesday, November 1st at the Mohegan Sun Convention Center. This year's convention will be capped off by Connecticut's final 2022 gubernatorial debate. Learn more at ccm-ct.org.